Sprinklers hissed to life over the raw bar, while he screamed for everyone to kill the gas. Guests clapped, thinking it was dinner theatre, until the ceiling turned into rain. By the time the fire brigade arrived, our safe was empty and the POS terminals were offline. The restaurant was Vidir, a glass and steel jewel box, on the old harbour in Reykjavik, the kind of place where tourists order fermented shark to show off, then beg for rye bread to recover their pride. Friday night in late January is always a little feral wind punching in from Faxafloy Bay, couples wrapped in wool and money. We had 98 covers on the books, one of them a TV presenter, with a grin you could skate on. The chef was the reason 98 became 123. People eat where a man with a career knife smiles into the camera and calls dill a love language. On paper, he was perfect. Nordic roots, Barcelona heat, said the magazine spreads. He had the kind of charisma that wears a white t-shirt like a tuxedo. He cooked on a ferryboat as a teenager, did his stage in Copenhagen, and his swagger in San Sebastian, won a TV show, and then did the thing every beautiful man does when the world tells him he can do anything. He tried a restaurant. On paper, I was the operations manager with a spreadsheet fetish and a taste for rules. In photos, I looked like the person who could tell whether a refrigeration unit was lying. We met at a pop-up in Lisbon in 2023. He was doing smoked lamb tacos as a bit. Iceland meets Mexico by way of Instagram. I was in town visiting my sister and got roped into running the pass because the event planner was crying over cracked plates. He took one look at my typed prep list and said, "Marry me into your organization." It was a joke, but he followed it with a plane ticket to Reykjavik and a proposal I could take to a bank, a 60-40 partnership, where he brought the face and the menu, and I brought the systems and the sanity. I knew the risks. Frontmen are magnets for attention and trouble, but I'd done 12 years in kitchens, elbow deep in stock pots and leases. I knew to ask for a shareholder agreement drafted by an adult. I hired one, Thorhalur Loa, a lawyer duo in a concrete office on Borgatún, where you could smell the money even through the radiator dust. The contract carved our lives into clauses. He was managing partner for culinary and creative. I was managing partner for operations and compliance. Capitalization, 18 million ISK initial, about 130,000 talents, with 9 million from him, sponsors and a TV advance. 9 million from me, savings and a small loan from my uncle who sells HVC units in Copavoga. Profit distribution, 55 to 45 in his favor until the capital returned. 50 to 50 thereafter. Change of control required both signatures. Death or disability triggered a buy-sell formula, keying off EBITDA. The safe needed 2 codes, mine and the evening manager's, with the log printing hourly, to a little thermal printer that sang like a cricket. We opened in July 2024, with whales in the bay and a line out the door. He was incandescent. He moved through the dining room with plates like planets and stories like weather, the grandmother's stew that smelled like snow, the fisherman who taught him to salt with his eyes closed. He remembered allergies and babies' names. He made surly contractors smile by cooking them midnight sausages out back on a grill that should have been illegal. He made the food taste like Iceland in summer, when moss looks like music. He also did the little things that should have rung bells. The first week, he asked to route all influencer comps through his assistant so brand can track ROI. Fine. The second week, he insisted that all fish purchases go through a preferred broker in Hafnarfjordur because they treat us like family. The invoices from the broker Tangi F came in a brown envelope with old-fashioned handwriting. Nothing evil uses curly script. The price was fair to the point of generous, like someone who's going to ask a big favor soon. The compromise that felt like a win, and later became my noose, was the house account. He had a private dining room upstairs, surrounded by glass, where he would entertain sponsors, or journalists, or a footballer home for a holiday. Since the press likes receipts, he wanted a separate ledger for those comps and soft costs that a normal POS line couldn't explain without killing the vibe. I set it up as a marketing cost center with a monthly cap of 2 million ISK and a reconciliation in QuickBooks every Monday. He agreed. He smiled, nodded, signed. He also asked for a restaurant-only corporate card with his name on it for emergencies. I asked for the card to live in my safe, except when signed out by me or the evening manager. He agreed. He smiled, nodded, signed. For 3 months, We were a machine that ate cash and spit out rave reviews. Then came January. Reykjavik in January is 2 hours of daylight and then a mood. The bills hit differently, utilities climbing, tourists eating caviar like it's the only way to fight the dark. We'd made enough in summer to pretend we were bulletproof. The winter wanted to see if the armor was actually a sweater. On January 10th, my bookkeeper, a woman named Brynja, who files envy under waste of time, flagged a reconciliation. 6 million ISK, posted under marketing, across December, that didn't match comps. I printed the detail. The vendor names were plausible, the memo lines soothing. Sponsored dinner Harbour View. Photographer holiday shoot. Tasting menu VIP. The dates aligned with nights I remembered him entertaining people who tagged us online with gratitude in teeth. But the amounts were messy. 275,000 ISK on a Monday when we were closed. 410,000 ISK at 2:12 a.m. when our card machine stop settles at 020. The number that made my mouth taste like metal was a cash withdrawal. 300,000 ISK from the Icelandsbanki ATM on Tryggvagata at 23:44 on December 23rd, logged against supplier bonus. I asked him. I framed it as a systems question to see if he would bring me a story or a fight. He picked story. The sponsor had a last-minute truck rental. Their card didn't work. He stepped in because he's a hero. He forgot to text me because he's a human. He widened his eyes, softening the part of me that likes heroes and humans. He gave me a hug in the walk-in refrigerator where all bodies feel like truth. On January 17th, the fire happened. We had a full house, a blizzard threatening, a family of 6 singing Happy Birthday in Norwegian like they weren't in a foreign country. At 20:37, the lights flickered and a hiss rolled across the ceiling. The sprinklers, which had never done anything but collect dust and fear, woke up like 100 snakes. Staff did what trained staff do. I yelled to cut power at the breaker by the dish station. He yelled to kill the gas, which was cute because our line was induction, which even a TV chef knows doesn't explode. Darkness and water make people obedient. We corralled guests to the foyer under coats, told them to hold their drinks high like royalty in a flood. He moved like a conductor in a soaked tux. The fire brigade arrived fast, because this is a small city, and our tax money buys men who know their rigs. They checked heaters and electrical panels, and declared it a false alarm triggered by thermal anomaly. One of them, a man with hands like stove doors, said, "Your sensors are twitchy," and smiled in a way that made twitchy sound like forgivable biology. While everyone was wet and heroic, someone emptied the safe. We keep the safe in a closet between the dry goods and the office, invisible unless you love steel. The evening manager, Noy, found it open at 21:03. It was keyed for my code and his. We don't keep much cash in it. Reykjavik likes cards, but we had the last 3 nights' tips bundled in little rubber bracelets and a float of 120,000 ISK for the farmers' market pop-up on Saturday. Both gone. Also missing, the corporate card with his name. The POS terminals had lost connection. When they came back, the last 10 orders of the night were gone from the table view like a ghost licked the screen. I froze the card from my phone. I called the POS provider and asked for a live log. I comforted a dining room of wet, rich people with rye crisps on cute slate slabs and the promise we'd make it right. He got photographed under drips, noble and damp, comforting a child with an extra dessert we didn't charge for because he said it came from his heart, and my heart said, "Don't throw the invoice at a baby." At midnight, while we were mopping up, I smelled the faint burn of an electrical board that has been made to pretend it wants to die. Not an accident. Abuse. Our line cook, Edda, found a silicone spatula jammed under the hood of the dishwasher where the heat sensor lives. Someone had stuck a warm thing where it should not be to trick a sensitive part into telling a lie. I pulled it out with a towel and held it like a clue. He made the face men make when they need to be above suspicion. Weary, amused, above logistics. "Who would want to sabotage us?" he asked, tone pure wonder. "Someone who needed the sprinklers to clear the room," I said, "and the back." We didn't sleep. We did lists. Damage report, insurance call. We had a policy through Landsbref that listed water ingress like a poetic sin. Fire systems tech booked for morning. Plumber to hate the wet ceiling. Social media post, written in that tone, that says, "We are resilient," because patrons like their tragedies with a good filter. We closed Saturday, opened Sunday like a miracle, Because money hates rest, on Monday the bank called. The corporate card had been used at 2111 on Friday to pre-authorize 240,000 ISK at a boutique hotel in Brigade, an hour away, then to buy 79,900 ISK of wellness supplements at an online shop that prides itself on adaptogens. The fast part made me dizzy. A 98,000 ISK Uber-like charge to a private driver service at 2123 from a pickup location on our street. The broker, in Hafnarfjordur, Tangi F. attempted a 510,000 ISK debit at 2204, declined because I had frozen the card. Someone was working their little list. I called him. He didn't pick up. I texted him a photo of the silicone spatula and the bank charges. He replied with a heart emoji and then, "Let's talk later. I'm in a meeting with a network that rhymes with deadlicks." Humor is the marinade he used on fear. I emailed our lawyer pair, Thor Hallur Loa, the subject line, urgent, breach, emergency meeting. We met at 18 Siosdag in their overheated office, snow melting off my boots like guilt. I laid out the story in order. Loa, who has a voice like a well-sharpened knife, asked for documents. I gave her copies. The POS outage log, the safe access printouts, which showed 2 codes entered at 2040 mine at 11:52 a.m. when I did the cash drop, then a second at 2040 with an override key I didn't know we had. The bank charges, the spatula photo. She said override key twice, once like a question and once like a diagnosis. She asked who had one. Manufacturer, I said. And me? I didn't know they existed outside manuals. He walked in 10 minutes late, smelling like good cologne and crisis PR. He kissed both lawyers on both cheeks, oozed apology, blamed the broker in Hafnarfjordur for being old school, and produced a phone full of texts that said he'd been trying to pay the broker and the card had glitched. He told a story where he had run to the safe to pull cash as the sprinklers rained, the alarm screaming, but the safe wouldn't accept his code. He implied that my system was both hostile and unsafe. He made himself hero and victim, and me, the woman who loves her rules more than men love their knives. The lawyers listened, which is their job. They asked for his phone to copy the messages. He handed it over with a flourish, like transparency is a parlor trick. Loa scrolled, eyebrows doing math. She pointed at one thread. "This number," she said, "you say it's the broker's." He nodded. She dialed it. The phone on the table buzzed in her hand, the same phone. The thread was with himself, with the contact name saved as Tangi F. The lawyer didn't react. She simply turned the phone so it faced him and waited for his acting choice. He smiled away, "I will never forgive." "I sometimes send myself notes to remember how calls went," he said. It was a lie of such purity it could have been bottled. The next morning, I went to the police on Verfiskata and filed a report. I brought a folder that made the officer's eyebrows go north. The safe logs, the POS downtime, the bank charges, a printout of the phone thread where a man texted himself as a supplier, a photo of a spatula in the wrong place, a letter from the fire brigade with the incident number, and the note, "False alarm triggered by local thermal sensor anomaly." The officer took the folder like a teacher accepts a perfect essay they now have to grade. He gave me a case number and told me politely to go home and wait while they did the thing no restaurant owner wants to hear, investigate. Waiting is a job. You can do it with your hands moving or your mouth. I cooked through it and hired an outside auditor, a Dutch woman named Saskia, who had done forensic work for a hotel group that caught a general manager running a side business selling linen to his own property. She wore boots with quiet soles and a mind that documented everything. She set up at a corner table with 2 laptops and a coffee that looked like an oil spill. She requested 3 months of vendor invoices, 3 months of bank feeds, the restaurant's security camera footage around the office door on January 17th, any comms about comps. Saskia found the seam in 2 days. The house account cap had been raised from 2 million ISK to 8 million ISK on December 3rd in the settings panel from a login that belonged to our bartender, Loust. He swore he didn't do it. We checked the admin logs. The change came from an IP address that matched a phone on our Wi-Fi named Saga 1, his assistant's laptop. The Tangi F. Invoices had bank details that resolved to a personal account at Aryan Banki, not a brokerage. The wellness supplement purchase was a gift card sent to an email built of his initials and 2 numbers. The boutique hotel in Brigade had a reservation that night in a suite. The minibar was cleared like a storm. Saskia was not cruel with her findings. She printed the evidence, labeled each page with the date and source, put it in a binder, and slid it across the table at our lawyers with the calm of a midwife. "I recommend you lock him out of all systems now," she said, "and call the insurer with the word fraud before he does." I did. I wrote the longest email of my life to our insurance claims adjuster, attaching the binder content as PDFs, with names like 2025-01 and 17 POS outage log. PDF and 2024-12-03 house account cap change. PNG, I CC'd the police case email. I blind copied my uncle in Kopavogur because when you owe a man money and he believes in you, you tell him the fire was not an act of God, but an act of a man who thinks he is one. He did not go quietly. He sent me a midnight email titled, "You are burning down what we built," in which he described himself as the soul of the place and me as a clerk who had grown jealous of art. He emailed staff individually, implying that if they stood by him, he would open a new spot and bring them. He went on a podcast and cried about betrayal. He said on the radio that sometimes a spreadsheet kills a dish. He DM'd 2 influencers to say I had put my thumb on the scale of creativity. He did not name me, but he didn't have to. Reykjavik is a small city with loud phones. He showed up twice on the street outside the restaurant, hands in pockets like he owned the bricks. He stood across from the front door with a coffee he didn't drink. On the 3rd time, he approached the delivery entrance and told the dishwasher that change was coming and he would make sure everyone who mattered had a place. I walked to the door with the binder in my arms like a shield and told him calmly that he was suspended from the premises pending legal resolution. He said, "You can't fire genius." I said I wasn't. I was reporting fraud. He laughed, which is what men do when they need to tell the world they don't feel small. I documented every appearance, dates, times, witnesses, a quick photo that I printed and labeled. I sent this log to our lawyer and the police with subject lines that said things like, Addendum, observed presence at rear entrance, 0204, 19-26. I applied for a restraining order in district court, listing my relationship to him as business partner, because man who nearly immolated my calm wasn't a category. The judge issued a temporary order, barring him from coming within 100 meters of the premises and from contacting staff. He violated it 2 days later by messaging the bartender in a group chat. We sent that too. Then the ally arrived. Her name was Helena Dvorakova, an auditor from Prague who had moved to Iceland for love and stayed for weather. She worked for the insurer. She showed up in a bright scarf, like a small sunrise, and a briefcase like a threat. She sat in our closed dining room with the binder and the security footage on a loop. She watched the moment at 2037, where the sprinkles start and the rush to the back. She watched him enter the storage hallway and then the office corridor. She paused and zoomed. On the wall is a small key cabinet for emergency use line keys and a copy of the outside lock. After the electricians had done the install, someone had added a key with a tag marked OVR. She cross-referenced the manual for our safe. Override, she said. Used with a supervisor code, you can open without the second code. She looked at me like, forgive yourself for not being paranoid enough. We found the key in the cabinet, tag damp from the sprinkler night. Fingerprints are theatre in restaurants. Flour and fish oil wipe away all sins. But the existence of the key in a public cabinet was a story. Who put it there? Why? We checked delivery logs. On January 3rd, an engineer from the safe manufacturer had serviced the unit and replaced the main board. The ticket showed a signature, his assistant, not me. The work order included a line in small font. Added authorized override key per client request. Client was us. The request came from an email, formatted like ours ops vidir, is, but a check of the header showed it was ops. Vidergmail, com, fast, cheap, dirty. He had set up a parallel email that looked like my work address and used it to arrange an override key. He did not copy me. He smiled in my refrigerator instead. Helena's report to the insurer used words I now find devotional. Material misrepresentation, willful act, moral hazard. Insurance companies don't like paying for water if someone invited it to the party. The insurer declined the claim for the fire damage, citing an ongoing criminal investigation and probable fraud by an insured partner. It hurt to read because we needed that money, but it also held a mirror I could not distort. The person who was supposed to protect us from the weather had made rain. The police moved faster with Helena's report in their hands. They obtained a court order to pull CCTV from the hotel in Brigade. The footage showed him, hair wet, entering the suite with two people I did not recognize, his hands full of champagne and a hotel robe that did not belong to him. They subpoenaed ISP logs to trace the ops. Vidergmail. Com account. It led to his assistant's laptop and the restaurant Wi-Fi IP at odd hours. They traced the Arion Banki account where Tanguy F. Payments landed. The account owner was his cousin in Akureyri. The cousin, when visited by two patient men in wool hats, said he thought he was helping move money faster for a seasonal cash flow. He had handed over an ATM card twice while visiting Reykjavik and had been paid in dinners and the feeling of being useful to family. He cried into a paper towel. They kept his story with the others. When the charge landed, fraud, theft, insurance deception, he did what beautiful men do when their sentences finally have verbs. He went on television. He said this was a misunderstanding, that creative accounting had been common in restaurants for 100 years, that his partner, me, was opposed to innovation and modern hospitality. He said a thing that became a meme for a week. What is a safe but a suggestion? Half of Reykjavik laughed. The other half made reservations with a side of curiosity. People rubberneck. It's human. We closed for a week to scrub and to breathe. We reopened with an empty chef's pass and a menu we could actually execute without a show. Lamb shoulder with fennel seed, cod with brown butter and capers, barley risotto that tasted better than it sounded. Customers came back because their bodies needed heat and salt from places that aren't the internet. We stopped doing influencer dinners. We cancelled every brand event that didn't end in cash. We changed the safe. We moved the key cabinet to the office, behind a lock only 3 people had. We ditched the house account for a list on a clipboard with names and a total that we updated by hand and posted on the staff room wall because sunlight kills fungus. He kept needling. He sent me a letter through his lawyer demanding to inspect the books. Our lawyer replied with dates and a conference room. He didn't show. He sent a bouquet on Valentine's Day, red tulips, which we both hated, with a card that said, "Remember what we made." I handed the bouquet to the line cooks to turn into garnish. They did, with knives that have seen worse. The case ground on like a glacier, being asked to dance. He violated the restraining order a 3rd time by showing up at the harbour and walking past the window 3 times with a scarf I had stupidly bought him in Copenhagen, when I thought gifting a scarf could make a man a protector. The Gardaí equivalent here are men who fish and then go to law school. They are patient. They warned him, and then, when he did it again, they cuffed him without theatre, put him in a car, and called me to say, "We're doing our jobs." He spent the night in a cell with a man who didn't care about TV. He came out quieter, not contrite, quieter. Our new ally, Helena, kept emailing me with updates I could trust. The insurer was going to sue to recover investigative costs. The police were rapping. The prosecutor would likely offer a plea with restitution and a suspended sentence if he enrolled in a financial ethics course, which is a phrase that makes me laugh even now. The court would issue a ban from managing a restaurant for 2 years. He would pivot to private dining, where law is a handshake and a mood. We stayed standing because of petty logistics. My uncle renegotiated our HVAC maintenance in exchange for naming a sandwich after him on the staff meal board. Brynja convinced 3 vendors to give us 60 days. Edda's girlfriend made us a spreadsheet template for inventory that didn't make my eyes bleed. I learned to cut fish from the good side. We hired a sous chef from Akureyri, who cooked like someone who knows silence is louder than a camera. People came back to eat, not to gawk. Tourists washed their fermented shark down with aquavit and asked for the story we would not tell at the table because the table is for food. Here is the part where people always ask about love. I didn't date. I slept. I wrote receipts. Then Saskia, the forensic auditor with the quiet boots, invited me to go see the Northern Lights on a weird, clear Tuesday in March because her girlfriend had the flu. We stood by a frozen car outside Selfoss and watched green light behave like a language we had not been taught. She said my name once, like a fact, not a plea. She kissed me in a way that made my bones unclench. We've been eating breakfast together since. We settled the civil stuff in a way that made me both relieved and annoyed. He returned 17. 2 million ISK over a schedule with a lien against his TV advance. He admitted to misallocations, but not to theft, because words matter to egos. He agreed to resign as managing partner and forfeit his shares under the buy-sell formula for material breach. I bought him out with a loan from an older couple who believes restaurants are churches. He kept his knives. Of course he did. On a rainy Friday in May, we printed new menus without his name. We hung a photograph of the harbour at dawn, where his portrait used to be. We posted a note by the host stand that said simply, "We are the same restaurant, new captain." People smiled at the metaphor, because boats in Reykjavik are not metaphors. They're boats. Do you want the twist? It was baked into the hook. On a windy night in June, sprinklers hissed to life over the raw bar for no reason anyone could see. Staff looked at me with eyes like deer by a road. I felt every cell in my body sprint to a memory. I walked to the breaker, turned off power like a priest making a sign, and walked to the safe. It was closed. The POS was online. The key cabinet was locked. We ushered guests to the foyer, passed them blankets like an airline, joked about Icelandic weather inside buildings. The fire brigade arrived. The same man with hands like stove doors checked the thermal sensors. He pointed to the ceiling, where a bulb had exploded and blown warm glass onto a sensor. "Old building," he said. I stood under the hissing and laughed, the dry, relieved laugh of a woman whose body remembers fire and can finally tell it from rain. We reset. We comped drinks and sent out extra rye. People clapped again, because Reykjavik loves clapping after a small disaster. I looked at the ceiling, and then at the safe, and then at my staff, and then at the binders on the office shelf. We had learned our language. Document, lock, breathe, feed. And then I did the thing I wanted to do in January but couldn't. I walked to the host stand, wiped my hands, and wrote on the little chalkboard by the door in my worst handwriting, "Sprinklers are drama queens. We're open." Guests laughed. We served lamb. We sold out of cod. We counted the till with the same steady hands. Sprinklers hissed to life once more in Reykjavik, and this time they were just water.